As I start to wrap up this series, I'd like to list what I feel are the most feminist parts of Dollhouse. To be fair though, I'll also list what I consider the least feminist parts. I think that it's better to end on a positive note, so I'll start with the bad. Here are the top 10 anti-feminist parts of Dollhouse. Number 10. Alpha and Ballard taking the role of the prince in Season 1, Episode 11, Briar Rose. I sometimes think that writer Jane Espenson just doesn't get feminist sentiment. She'll frame something as if it's an empowering feminist statement.
The prince was a boy.
Yeah, but that's not his fault.
But the end result will seem horribly regressive. She did it with the Belle Rumpelstiltskin romance in Once Upon a Time, and she does it here with Echo dreaming of a man to save her. Echo gives advice to a traumatized girl who was prostituted out against her will. The girl feels guilty because she felt like she was complicit, and she freaks out when listening to Briar Rose, aka Sleeping Beauty, because she thinks that the princess should have saved herself. Echo tells her to imagine herself as the prince, rescuing herself, because the princess dreamed up her rescuer. When Alpha and Ballard enter the dollhouse, the girl reads the story, and both men take the role of the prince. Except Echo really is complicit because she doesn't understand and helps Boyd fight Ballard. Later, Alpha, after slashing up Victor and scaring Claire, rescues her, and she calls him her prince.
I told you I'd come rescue you.
My prince.
I don't get how that should come across as empowering. Echo's really just telling a girl a nice story to make her calm down, not how the rescue narrative actually works. Yes, Caroline called Ballard in Season 1, Episode 8 needs, but Echo didn't really mold Ballard. If anything, Alpha molded Ballard, and Alpha is Echo's creepy stalker. In the end, it's about a woman being helpless to men and tossed around in a game between Ballard, Boyd, and Alpha. Number 9. Taffy and Echo faking sexual assault in Season 1, Episode 4, Grey Hour. It was done as a big twist to keep you on your toes. Taffy looks like she's a stripper, and then you see what appears to be her running away while men try to rape her. The hotel manager saves her and tries to buy her off to save the hotel's reputation. It's a nice commentary on the abuses of power, and then Taffy attacks him because it was all a big trick to get him to lead her into the restricted area. It's a nice twist that keeps us on our toes, but it also perpetuates an awful stereotype that women can always turn to lying about sexual assault in order to get their way in society. While some women do that, I would characterize them as sociopaths or extremely disturbed, and Taffy is only portrayed as a clever woman who knows how to get the job done. Not psychopathic like the assassin in the unaired pilot Echo. We're supposed to like and respect Taffy. Perpetuating this stereotype leads to an unsafe environment, where people become suspicious of women reporting sexual assault, and women become afraid to report it because they suppose they won't be believed. It is very problematic for Dollhouse to depict the cry-rape tactic in such a manner. Number 8. The depiction of butch lesbian-esque women as evil in Season 2, Episode 7, Meet Jane Doe, and Season 2, Episode 12, The Hollow Men. By the usual sexist gender roles, women are supposed to be gentle and caring, while men are supposed to be aggressive and harsh. So when a TV show wants to visually communicate that a woman is evil and to be feared, an easy route is to make her look masculine. So Dollhouse does with Adele when she's pretending to be evil, and with the transgendered imprint of Clyde 2.0 on Whiskey. I know he's a man, but his masculinity comes out alongside his evilness. Their masculine looks are combined with dark colors, nefarious authority, and the sort of flirtatious sexual harassment that comes from villains that are supposed to be creepy but charismatic to the viewer. This makes Joss's feminist sentiment look like it's boiled down to saying femininity is good and masculinity is bad, which is a real problem in his shows. Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 2, Episode 6, Halloween, had the whole Jonas and Jonna thing, where Jonas looks evil and Jonna looks good, and then the evil butch lesbian thing popped up with Willow in Season 6. It's a bad shorthand, perpetuating sexism and homophobia, and Joss Whedon should know better. Number 7. Kiki and Victor being hilarious for juxtaposing a masculine body with a feminine demeanor in Season 2, Episode 3, Belle Chose. After Topher attempts a remote wipe of Terry and Victor, something goes wrong and Terry is put in Echo's body. They deal with that for a bit, and then Adele gives the setup line.
If Terry's an Echo, where did Kiki go?
This leads us to what is supposed to be a hilarious gag, where Victor acts like a girl. Haha, he's wiggling his butt. Haha, he's trying to look sexy the way women do. Haha, men don't do that. Haha, he's trying to flirt with boys. Haha, he thinks anyone would take him seriously. Haha, Ballard's embarrassed because people will think he's gay. Yeah. This is seriously problematic for enforcing traditional gender roles and making it look like men who transgress them are a walking joke. We're not supposed to look at this and appreciate that Kiki finally got to dance, that actor Enver Jokai can bust a move, or that he can dance sexy. We're supposed to laugh at a man acting like a girl. We may appreciate Enver Jokai's range of acting ability, but always with the assumption that he's doing comedy, because men don't degrade themselves by acting feminine. It's transphobic and homophobic, but more than that, it implies that there is something innately humiliating about femininity. As long as they don't look like butch lesbians, women are appreciated for breaking traditional gender roles and accepting the strength that comes along with the masculine association of certain activities or traits. Echo is respected when she demonstrates great physical ability like mountain climbing or fighting, which is also linked with the masculine associated trait of aggression. In a patriarchal world, when a woman does something associated with masculinity, she ascends to a higher rung on the social ladder. But when a man does something associated with femininity, he degrades himself and drops down the ladder. That is because masculinity is considered inherently good and strong, while femininity is inherently bad and weak. Encouraging viewers to laugh at a man degrading himself because femininity is weak and shameful is terribly anti-feminist. Number 6. How it's supposed to be funny when Tony finds a skimpy outfit he had to wear in Season 1, Episode 8, Needs. As part of an attempt to make the actives easier to control, Echo, Sierra, November, and Victor are given back their original personalities, Caroline, Priya, Madeline, and Tony, so they can escape the dollhouse and hopefully fulfill whatever underlying needs they have. While escaping, they duck into the place where the active clothes are stored and find clothes tailored just for them. They start browsing the racks, and then Tony finds a really skimpy outfit. In what's supposed to be a quick gag to lessen the tension, he gets embarrassed and wants to leave. Let's recap. These people are slaves. They know they're slaves. They're scared and intimidated by what appears to be a vast conspiracy conducted by people who dehumanize them and consider them pets.
It's like Mr. Dominic said, they're pets.
We know that a good portion of dollhouse indentured servitude involves being prostituted out, and it's only a matter of time before they realize this. Then Tony realizes this, and somehow it's funny? It goes back to the idea that men are inherently strong and women are inherently weak, and that men are actors while women are acted upon. The idea of displaying oneself sexually for the enjoyment of another is considered something innately feminine because women are inherently in a submissive role. Similar to the Kiki scene, Tony is considered hilariously degraded because it seems like he was made to do something feminine. More than that, it makes it seem like rape is only a problem when conducted against women. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Mutant Enemy was well aware of the normal function of the dollhouse being rape on one level. If Caroline were to find something skimpy, it would be icky. She would know that she was prostituted out, she would feel violated, and it would be a big thing that builds up tension and adds to the meaning of her attacking Topher later on in the episode. But when a man finds out he was prostituted out, it's just a funny moment because his machismo takes a hit. This is a general problem in the show, as we'll see later in this list. Number 5. Only the power of love, or homosexuality, can keep Ballard from taking advantage of Echo in Season 2, Episode 8, A Love Supreme. Alpha, Echo's creepy stalker, wants to know the mechanics of love between Echo and the men she fell in love with, so he goes around interrogating and killing clients that fell in love with her. He eventually focuses his attention on Ballard, because he and Echo love each other without dollhouse mind tricks or illusions. When Alpha interrogates Ballard, he has to convince Ballard that there really is a connection between them. Alpha brings up the events of the previous episode, Season 2, Episode 7, Meet Jane Doe, which he observed while stalking Echo. In it, Echo tried to have sex with Ballard, but he rejected her because he didn't think that she could properly consent under the circumstances. Alpha insists that when a woman as beautiful as Echo offers sex to a man and the man rejects her, it must mean that either he's gay or in love with her. Even though he's a serial killer, Alpha comes across as the voice of reason, getting Ballard to wake up and realize how he feels about Echo. It's problematic because love or lack of sexual arousal shouldn't be presented as the only reason a man would ever refuse to have sex with a woman. There should be more respect given to the men who make the responsible choice not to have sex with women in certain positions. They managed to do this well enough in Buffy Season 2, Episode 16, Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, but in Dollhouse's A Love Supreme, there's this weird love story being shot for that doesn't hold up as well from a feminist perspective. It's like we want to imagine men as lust-driven monsters, and that therefore when one holds back, it must be an act of love. Twilight does it, True Blood does it, a ton of stupid manga does it. It's just disappointing that a show as intelligent and feminist as Dollhouse would do it too. Number 4. Claire sexually assaulting Topher in Season 2, Episode 1, Vows. As men are so associated with strength and lust, there's this idea that women can't really sexually assault men because men are innately in power and would just find the sex enjoyable. Episode writer Joss Whedon knows enough to have his freaking out Topher try to indicate that men can be physically aroused without actually being into what's going on.
That is the minority vote. And you tricked it.
But the whole thing feels like a sexy and funny moment.
Could have been Fozzie Bear and it would have...
Actress Amy Acker is attractive, and it feels like the men in the audience are to imagine how hot it would be if a woman who looked like that woke them up through manual stimulation. It feels like we're to laugh at Topher, who should just enjoy what's going on instead of act all silly and try to escape. The scene doesn't get serious until Claire starts talking about what's really going on. She's freaking out about her identity issues. Who is she? Why did Topher program her this way? Is Topher trying to manipulate her? What does this mean for Claire's overall sense of identity? Should she fight against her programming or try to embrace it? The whole serious part of the scene is about Claire, and we're never led to feel sorry for Topher. Even when she slaps him for rejecting her, we're supposed to care about her feelings. We can compare to the infamous Buffy and Spike sexual assault scene. Despite James Marsters being an attractive man, we are not led to find his advances attractive. When Buffy rejects him, we are not to find her silly for ignoring a hot man. When he chases her around the room, we're tense and anxious, not relaxed and amused. The actual assault ends when she hits him, not he her, and we care about Buffy's feelings more than his. Though this does launch an arc where Spike gets introspective and decides to be a better man, the end of the scene is all about Buffy. This pervasive idea that women can't really sexually assault men is troubling. It's based on archaic notions of gender that derive from patriarchy, and is one of the main examples of how patriarchy hurts men too. It's offensive to men by saying men can't be victims, and it's offensive to women by saying women can't be threats. It's really disappointing to see this in a show that could have something like the Topher-Bennett relationship, where both are roughly on the same level and can both be respected in their violent dealings with each other. It is bad, but at least there is some acknowledgement that it's assault. Topher acts like a victim in dodging her advances, and he talks about how physical arousal doesn't equal consent. It's not as bad as... Number 3. The unacknowledged rape of Perrin in Season 2, Episode 5, The Public Eye. Yeah, at least Topher made a reference to not consenting. This introduces rape and discards it almost immediately without even acknowledging that there's even a problem. What happens is Perrin drinks something from room service. It's clearly been drugged and he collapses. When he wakes up, Echo as a prostitute indicates that they've been having sex. She has video evidence, and she's going to use this to blackmail him into giving up his crusade against Rossum. Perrin figures out what's going on and wants to take Echo home as evidence of Rossum's mind control. The episode moves forward on that note, and nothing is ever said about Echo raping him. Yeah, the guy was roofied, raped, and then blackmailed about it. And nothing is ever said about it. When Nolan and Hearn raped Priya/Sierra, the victim acted appropriately violated, and we eventually got the satisfaction of seeing the perpetrators brutally punished for it. Topher's plight is ignored, but at least he's allowed to visibly suffer. With Perrin, there's nothing to indicate that Echo has adversely affected him at all, except through threatening his political career with the thoughts of a scandal. As Perrin thinks he can prove that Rossum forced it, there's no threat to his reputation, and the whole situation is forgotten about. This is like how MRAs see rape, as about reputation and not violation. Number 2. That Topher would have been a proper humanitarian for enslaving Priya if she were properly crazy. In Season 2, Episode 4, Belonging. In Season 1, Episode 8, Needs, we find out that Nolan sent Priya to the Dollhouse to be a sex slave. It is pretty clear that this is a normal operation of the Dollhouse. They're sex traffickers. In Season 2, Episode 4, Belonging, this is retconned by making it so that Nolan tricked them into accepting Priya, to make Topher and Adele look more sympathetic. In the revised continuity, Nolan drugged up Priya and had her committed. As Nolan was the head of the hospital, he was able to create the illusion that she was delusional. He then brought Topher in to examine her. Topher determined that he could fix her damaged brain with Dollhouse tech, and he brought her in to be the next Sierra. Presumably, Adele would have released her in 5 years' time. Echo gets Topher to investigate the circumstances of Priya's induction, and Topher feels terrible for unwittingly participating in the sexual enslavement of a helpless woman. However, all the focus is on Nolan faking her mental illness. Yes, that was bad, but there's a problem with the idea of taking mentally ill people for active fodder. Even if we buy that whole concept of their indentured servitude being consensual because of the initial contract signing, that could only work with the people having a decent ability to observe the world around them and reach intelligent decisions. With the delusions Priya was displaying, if she were truly mentally ill, she could not give legitimate consent to becoming a slave. While Adele's reveal that they recruited Alpha from a prison to lessen his sentence was delivered as to suggest shock at the depravity of capitalism, Topher's recruitment of Priya is played as a legitimate concept except for Nolan tricking them. The end result is to suggest that mentally ill women are not people and do not deserve rights in the same way. And the number one anti-feminist part about Dollhouse is the overall sexy way everything is shot, with oversaturation and camera flirtation, seen throughout most of the show. This is the main issue that makes Dollhouse hard to get into as a feminist. It tries too hard to be sexy, and ends up leading the viewer to objectify the characters. This is an overall thing, and it's used on Ballard, Victor, and Perrin in addition to the women, so it isn't sexist per se. The problem is that it often comes on at inappropriate times, such as during scenes in which people are being sexually abused. When we're ogling Echo, who's a woman rented out just for her body, it positions us in the perspective of the clients. This leads to people thinking that it's supposed to be this big sexy fantasy about owning dolls. Joss made a comment about him and Eliza Dushku trying to get people to put themselves in the position of the clients, and then realize that their desire is creepy, but that's honestly giving people too much credit. It's like Silence of the Lambs having Buffalo Bill as a cisgender guy who perverts transsexuality. No one follows that. They just see the creepy serial killer who is weird in his transgression of gender norms and associate the two. That's assuming the main audience is a lot more progressive than they actually are. If Joss could somehow ensure that only feminist-friendly people saw Dollhouse, maybe it could work, but the normal Fox viewership isn't that demographic. When you add on the Fox stuff trying to sell the show as a big sexy time, it gets pretty ridiculous. The world is not ready for Joss's Dollhouse vision. Wow, that was negative! Don't worry, next time is the positive list.